Hey everyone, I'm Josh with J&T's Journey, and today we're going to have a look at another episode of AVan Tips and Tricks. Hey everyone, Josh here with J&T's Journey, and today on AVan Tips and Tricks we're going to cover off a really simple one. Plug in your AVan. This seems like a really simple one, but in actual fact it's far more important than you would think. One of the most common complaints that we see on the AVan forum is people who have had their campers in storage for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, a couple of years sometimes. These things happen. And they go to drag the camper out, they put the roof up, they walk inside the van and the lights don't work. But they've plugged into power because they've just dragged the camper out. But it's been unplugged for the whole time that it's been in storage. But not only do the lights not work, your 12 volt heater doesn't, your 12 volt gas hot water service doesn't work. So you can't ignite the gas on your hot water service. Oh, but hang on, you've got a more modern AVan that's got a digitally controlled Dometic style fridge, or I think some of the newer ones have a different model as well, but it all runs off 12 volts. You can't turn that on either because you've got no battery power. So what you really need to do when you've got your camper in storage is plug it in. Now, we'll go through what you're going to need in order to plug the camper in at home. Most of you who are plugging the campers in to prep them at home will already have this, but for those who are new to the game, we'll show you what you're going to need, and then we'll talk about why you need to keep your camper plugged in, what the risks associated with that are, and why we believe it's the best course of action to leave your camper plugged in. All right, the first thing you're going to need is, if you don't have a dedicated 15 amp outlet on your house. And now some people do wire up a dedicated 15 amp outlet on your house, but if you don't, if you're like us and you just have a normal outside power point, you're going to need one of these. Now there are a few different models of these. This is just the one that we picked up from Bunnings. They have ones that are an all-in-one unit with no cable on the end of it. It's just got a plug and a socket. But essentially what this is a 15 amp outlet with a 10 amp plug that goes into your normal power point and a 10 amp circuit breaker. Now I also have a 15 amp extension lead here because the lead that is in our camper isn't long enough to get to our power point. And what is the difference? Well, if you have a look at the two of these, you can see this earth pin here is much larger on the 15 amp compared to the 10 amp. Now, do not be a backyard warrior and grind that pin down. It is not safe. Okay, so if you're going to plug this in at home, make sure you have one of these 15 amp adapter boxes. There's a 10 amp circuit breaker in here, which will make sure that it doesn't overload your house circuit at home and potentially cause a fire. Next thing you need to do, come around the back of the van, open up your power outlet and drag your cable out to wherever your power point is. Make sure, if you're not close enough to the power point, that you've got your extension lead and your adapter box so that when you drag it out, you can plug your extension lead and plug it into the power point. Pull the lead out the whole way. You should not leave this bundled up inside the camper with it plugged in. It's not safe. Then, when you get down to your power point, open up your adapter box, plug your lead in, make sure the power point's turned off, plug it in, and turn it on. While you're here, if you could give us a like, a subscribe, and share the video, that would be fantastic. It really does help us. It costs you guys absolutely nothing, but it does help us get these videos out to our audiences. The more likes and subscribes that we do have, the further YouTube pushes the video out to other people who might find this information useful. The next thing you need to check is make sure that your circuit breakers are turned on so that the power is actually getting into your camper.
In our camper, the circuit breakers are located just underneath the seat in the dinette. Depending on your layout, these might be in a different, well, slightly different location. In some older vans, they are located under the bed, and in the vans with the front kitchen, I'm not 100% sure where they're located, but check your manual. You should be able to find where they are.
Now in our camper, obviously we have a big Victron charging system, but you can see here that it's in mode float charging and it's charging the battery. The standard projector charger, which sits under the bed, does have indicator lights on the front of it, which will tell you whether or not it's charging the battery. Why do you want to keep your camper on charge while it's in storage? Well, there's a couple of reasons. The first one is you really don't want your battery to go flat. If you're like us, we use our camper quite a bit. I mean, to be fair, unless we have the fridge permanently running and we're in the dead of winter, we don't actually need to have our camper specifically plugged in because we have all of this solar. But this is not a typical installation. So if you don't have an upgraded solar setup, your solar, unless the camper is living outside and it's not under a cover, your solar is unlikely to be able to keep up with the demands of the battery, especially if you want to run the fridge or pre-cool things down, etc. You have to have your camper plugged in. If your camper is stored inside, out of the sunlight, under a garage, underneath a tree, or you store it with a cover on, absolutely plug it in. Yes, some of the more modern vans with the larger solar offering can keep the battery trickle charged, in which case that is effectively the same as plugging it in. However, we would always advocate for keeping your camper plugged in while it's in storage, simply because the battery charger is going to do a better job of keeping the battery charged. Why does the battery charger do a better job of keeping it charged over the solar charger? Well, what happens with a solar charger is every time the sun goes down and the sun comes up, the solar charger then tries to go through a full charging cycle again. So if your battery is fully charged for the previous day and it's sat on a float charge until the sun went down and then the sun comes up the next morning, there's going to be a small amount of discharge in that battery overnight, and then the solar charger the next morning is going to go, I need to top that battery up, so it's going to run the battery through a full charge cycle. Whereas if you're plugged into the mains power, that cycle is not going to happen. It's going to keep the battery on a float charge. Your battery life is directly linked to the number of cycles that you run the battery through. If you have your battery going through even a small cycle, 365 days a year, as opposed to sitting on a float for 365 days a year, you will find the battery that's been sitting on the float will have a larger usable capacity remaining after a year as compared to a battery that has been slightly cycled. Now, we are talking about lead batteries here. Lithium are a different story. There's a lot of debate over lifetime on lithium batteries. The next reason is you want your camper ready to go. If you want to go take your camper out and you don't stick to a particular schedule like us, it's quite often on a Wednesday or a Thursday afternoon, T and I will go, hey, let's take the camper out this weekend. If your camper's plugged in, you know the battery's fully charged, you know it's ready to go, you don't have to worry about batteries going flat. Now, I'm going to do another video soon that shows you what do you do if your battery does go flat and you've still got the standard charging gear. If it's a more modern van, there is a way that you can recover that battery without having to jump start it. The inbuilt charger has a mode in it that will allow you to recover the battery, but you'll have to like and subscribe to our channel to make sure that you get updates for when we release that video. We're always working on improving our content. We know we have a huge amount of AVan followers, so we're trying to produce content specifically that is useful for our AVan following. Although a lot of these principles do apply to a bunch of other makes and models of vans as well. There's a lot of general tips in here that apply. Look, thanks everybody for watching. I know this seems like a simple one, but it is super important in our opinion. Keep your van plugged in. It's always ready to go. You're putting your batteries through less cycles and you're not risking your battery going flat in storage. Till the next one, thanks everybody for watching. As I said, like, subscribe, share the video. I'm Josh with J&T's Journey. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of AVan Tips and Tricks. Cheers.